Hello Epic Gamers, my name is WalknDinner and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's. Specifically, a rudimentary, unspecific overview of it, based on Game Theory's Ultimate Timeline, which will be linked down below for those who desire to get a more in-depth analysis of it. On top of that, a huge thanks to Meepers is deserved as he helped capture some footage for this. Anyway, without more delay, here's the Five Nights at Freddy's timeline, painfully simplified. The story starts in the 1930s when the stocks crashed, falling just as hard as my hopes and dreams did in 2020. People were bored, broke, and really in need of some entertainment, so they went to some funky-looking bear show, where a bear named Fredbear hits the gritty for entertainment. One time, a silly little guy called William saw this and said, "Hey, that's pretty chill. I want to do that." And a few decades after, boom, Fredbear was born. It featured the character Fredbear, unrelated, and Bonnie, both being rough suits for humans at first. People liked his show, and he loved entertaining them. Unfortunately, as with any capitalistic market, with this success came bootlegs, and the major one was a restaurant named Chica's Party World, featuring actual animatronics by one Henry Emily. One thing led to another, and the companies merged into one Fredbear's Family Diner. This location was extremely popular, so a spin-off restaurant was made with the supporting cast of Chica, Foxy, Blue Bonnie, and it is blue, and the one and only Frederick Fazbear. Plus, he had a wife and 3 kids. Though his curiosity and access to a living robot dictionary, he eventually invented very important things, like, just to name a pretty inconsequential one, spring-lock suits. The year was 1983. He couldn't work and be a functional parent. I mean, he wasn't a superhero, so he left babysitting to Michael Afton. Great parenting. But Michael was a bit of a jerk, and, well...
On 3, 1, 2...
Crying child's death traumatized the Afton family, and as all responsible parents do, William went to alcohol. He got drunk, and on his way to throw a tantrum at Henry, he saw Henry's daughter, Charlie Emily, the protagonist from the hit 2015 book The Silver Eyes, crying outside the restaurant. William casually rode up and ended her, like a normal dude does. Charlie's soul then possessed the puppet, because yes. Due to him being a great parent, he used science to trick his child into seeing demonic nightmares around his bedroom. He also neglected his wife and daughter due to his work, and thus she divorced him. You can't imagine why. In 1985, William was feeling a little silly and donned the Spring Bonnie outfit, luring kids into the back room and killing them, proceeding to then stuff them into animatronic suits backstage. For Cassidy, he was feeling a bit too goofy, and thus she died a more horrible and gruesome death than the others, leading to her being the angriest of the restless souls. She was stuffed into Fredbear, who looks a bit like Golden Freddy. Huh. Afton was then fired, and Fredericks shut down. Later on, in 1987, Henry reopened with new animatronics, both with enhanced security features and a design that entertained kids and, adults. The oldies were shoved in the back, out of sight, out of mind. William once again felt a little silly, and then decided to get back to killing. While he was there, he noticed the withered animatronics were a bit more lifelike than normal. I'm sure it's fine. Because he felt like it, he made Circus Baby's Pizza World so he could collect children like Pokemon cards for experiments. The year was 1993. Unfortunately, his daughter got a bit too curious and got by Baby. This disgusting occurrence caused him to learn about the possessed animatronic, which really sent him off the deep end when it comes to research. He jumped the animatronics and stole their endoskeletons, thus discovering Remnant, the fluid of life. Unfortunately, when he went back to find more Remnant, the ghosts got a bit quirky and chased him down. He hid in the suit, but that wasn't the best idea of his. He was spring-locked and was dead on the spot. Michael got a bit suspicious, so he explored where William told him to go, and discovered William's underground bunker. He learned what his father did and got a tad frustrated. Unfortunately, he got scooped before he could get his name. He was filled with endoguts and taking control, until the guts got a bit bored and peaced out. But Mike got some remnants, so he was A-okay. He applied for the night shift under many different names so as to avoid blame, and learned about his father's tomfoolery, all while trying to run the franchise into the ground. He did that by literally running them into the ground, specifically through fire. He later got an ad sometime around the year 2023, debatably, for an attraction that goes by the name of Fazbear Frights. When he got there, his dad finally showed up. His schizophrenia kicked in, and he saw echoes of his past jumping out at him. But that didn't really bother him, so he did what he did best and burned it all to the ground. But William didn't really get killed, because why not? Later, Henry sent out a friend request to anyone who accepted, and to them, they got a Frederick's restaurant. Mike accepted under the understanding that they would, at the end of the day, burn it all to the ground. Everyone was gathered into the pizzeria, which turns out was a trap for animatronics, and one thing led to another, and oh wow, it's on fire. Crazy how that works. But Cassie, being still a tad frustrated over William brutalizing her with a shovel, sentenced him to live in his own special hell for eternity. We all go through this at one point or another, but due to this, he didn't really die, which means part of his consciousness was transferred to his circuit board. The company died off and assets fell into Mrs. Afton's hands, who I will now refer to as Bailey, because of the theory that Ballora is a stand-in for Mrs. Afton. Anyway, Bailey's memories of her family came back due to her, seeing all these assets and pictures from her past life, and she decided to repair Fazbear Entertainment, and also repair her family. She realized she needed remnant, and set up the Fazbear Funtime service, all for the purpose of collecting remnant. To save her reputation first, she hired a certain indie dev that has no correlation to any other indie dev in the real world to make a series of horror games to, lighten people's opinions on the franchise. And it worked! One of the first things she did was make her kid, the crying child, as a robot. And she also made the biggest pizzeria to ever exist, Frederick Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. She also got William out of the prison pizzeria, but he was kind of tied up, being in Cassidy's hell and all that. So she created a silly little VR game named Five Nights at Freddy's VR to test William's consciousness virus on some unsuspecting testers. Standard day in the business. Vanessa was the best target to be stand-in for her own daughter Elizabeth, so she tried and it worked. Vanessa was then forcefully promoted to Chief Security Officer at the Pizzaplex, because why not? On top of that, Glamrock Frederick was the host of Michael's Soul, so yeah, the party's together again. But the puppet kinda also didn't want to go away, so it casually fused with the entire freaking building. Goals, people. Plus, an amalgamation of wires, a blob, so to say, was a tad cranky and thus became hostile towards any non-Michael Afton. Otherwise known as racism. Anyway, Gregory, or the robotic crying child, rebelled and started attempting mass murder. After he finds and beats up his dad, the Pizzaplex caves in, and hey, that's that. Just kidding. Why would you think this would end satisfyingly? This is Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, before I continue, I should mention that I am a bystander and I'm not really a theorist, so a lot of the connections I will make here are purely speculation and I do not have much evidence to back them up. I am just trying to piece together this story, and a lot of what game theory had to say made a lot of sense to me. Anyway, back to the story. Cassie is called to a ruined Pizzaplex by her friend Gregory, who I would guess she met while Gregory was sneaking out, disobeying Bailey, and thus possibly hanging out with Cassie, but hey, that is just speculation. As she explores, she comes across a Vanny mask, which lets her see things in a whole different way. So basically a drug mask, but it is also haunted with a spooky AI monster rabbit. Cassie fights ruined animatronics. Later on, they encounter Candy Cadet, who talks about a monster that mimics a mother's voice to lure a child to the basement where he was being kept in. Side note here, I have to wonder if, as well as foreshadowing the actual mimic animatronic, if it is also about Afton, who mimicked a friendly face, voice, Spring Bonnies, and lured them to a terrible fate. This is also supported by the fact that this story is told near where you fight Burntrap. Regardless, she's later attacked by the Mimic, who, get this, mimicked Gregory. She nearly gets hurt here, but Roxy saves her. Unfortunately, while Cassie was escaping the underground of the pizza plex, Gregory felt the Afton silliness taking over and drops the elevator, causing Cassie to freaking die. Allegedly. Didn't stop the other Cassie, but hey, maybe they're different. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. Again, I would like to thank Game Theory for a lot of the plot theories, and my friend Meepers for the excellent background imagery. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want, and hey, stay epic, guys.